The days of mom getting the kids majority of time with dad getting every other weekend is over. Now, both parents start with a presumption of equal time. So what does that mean, a presumption? That means, let's say you're my client and we walk into the courtroom and we say, "Good morning, judge. Goodbye, judge." And we leave. And then the other side walks in with their attorney and says, "Good morning, judge. Goodbye, judge." And they leave. No evidence of any kind was presented by either you or your spouse. In cases like that, you would have a 50-50 parenting plan, meaning that you get 50% of the time with your children and so does your spouse. However, that presumption is rebuttable by preponderance of the evidence. What is preponderance of the evidence? There's no perfect formula for it, but in essence, it's 50% plus 1. So just enough to get over that top, get over that hump to show the judge that this is not in the best interest of the children. But let's say it is 50-50. What will that actually look like? There are 3 very common schedules for 50-50 parenting plans. Schedule number 1 is week on, week off. Week on, week off time sharing typically begins and ends on Fridays with the kids returning to school. So for example, you have little Johnny, you take him to school all week long, and then you drop him off Friday morning, and after school, mom picks up little Johnny and has him all the way up until the next Friday. The next Friday, mom takes little Johnny to school, drops him off, and then dad, you pick him up after school and have him for the next week. It's a very simple and straightforward schedule, though it's not always good for some families. The second most common is called a 2-2-3, also known as a 2-2-5 schedule. And that is where parent A will have Monday and Tuesday every single week. And then parent B will have Wednesday and Thursday every single week. Then the parents alternate the weekend. So for example, in week 1, you might get Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and take back to school Monday. But then you would still get Monday, Tuesday, and then go 5 days without seeing your kid. This is the most popular schedule for professionals as it allows predictability. You know that you have your kids every single Monday and Tuesday, and your employer knows, your customers know, your clients know, your partners know. And they also know that you don't have your kids on Wednesday and Thursday. So if they have an early project or somewhere they need you to travel, or you need to work late, everyone on your staff, your team, and your customers know that you can be there on Wednesdays and Thursdays. The last most common schedule is a true 2-2-3, meaning that one parent has them Monday and Tuesday, the other parent Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it rotates again. So in other words, every 2 or 3 days you're changing. This is not a really good schedule or very popular with older children, but with very, very small children, such as infants or toddlers, this can be a good temporary schedule just to make sure that the children, small babies, don't forget who you are. When a parenting plan, whether done by agreement or entered by a judge, is signed by that judge, it becomes an order. If a parent violates the terms of the parenting plan, they may be held in contempt. Contempt is very dangerous because contempt comes with a lot of consequences. If you or your spouse is held in contempt, they may be ordered to pay all of your attorney's fees. They may be ordered to give you makeup days of time, and they may even be incarcerated, sent to jail if it's too severe. To prove contempt, you must prove 4 elements. Element number 1 is that there's an order in place. Element number 2 is that there's violation of that order. Element number 3 is that there's a willful violation of that order. And element number 4 is that the facts support a finding of contempt. What does that mean exactly? So element 1 is pretty straightforward. There's an ordered or agreed upon parenting plan signed by the judge that exists. We're good. Number 2, the violation of that order. Well, if the schedule is not being followed, then someone's violating the order. Number 3, that the violation is willful. And you may say, well, heck, I have a teenager. I can't make them go. And that may mean the court may not find you in willful contempt because you have to have the ability to comply and choose not to. And then number 4, that the facts support a finding of contempt. So for example, if you have a parenting plan where you're supposed to see your kids half the time and your ex is not letting you talk to your kids, is not letting you see your kids, is not providing you communication as to what's going on at school, they're in contempt. They can try to say, oh, well, I can't make the kid go, but they're wrong. The judges frown on that because every parent knows you make your kids get up early when they don't want to. You make them brush their teeth and they don't want to do that. You make them shower and bathe and have proper hygiene You make them go to doctor's appointments and get vaccinations. You make them go to school and do homework. If you can make them do that, you can make them see the other parent. A lot of people will ask, what happens to our parenting schedule as our children get older? Maybe the parenting plan was established while your children were toddlers or infants. What happens when they're teenagers? Do we automatically change? The answer is no. The parenting plan that's originally established is intended to last until that child turns 18. But life does happen. If there is a change, we first must show that it's a substantial and material change since the entry of the final judgment. If we can demonstrate that, or we will work together to demonstrate that substantial material change, and then ask the judge to modify the parenting plan in the best interest of the minor children. Again, children growing up is unpredictable. You certainly don't know what your 4-year-old's going to be like at 14. At Tampa Divorce, we will help you to craft a parenting plan that meets the needs of your growing children. A lot of parents will ask, what happens if I live far away from my children? If that's the situation, then the court will likely order a long-distance parenting plan. In a long-distance parenting plan, one parent will have the children for the majority of time of the school year. The other parent will get the majority of the summer, typically every spring break, every other Thanksgiving break, and one of the 2 weeks for the Christmas or winter break. Further, that long-distance parent will have the option to travel to Florida 1 or 2 weekends a month to see the children. But again, no judge is going to put children on a plane to leave on a Friday and come back 2 days later. That is why the long-distance parent gets more time in the summer. And you may ask, well, what if we live together now, but I plan on moving away? What happens then? That is called a relocation. Any move of your principal address of 60 days or more with the intent to remain is a relocation. Before relocating, and I cannot stress this enough, before relocating, you must either have your opposing party's consent, the other parent agreeing, or must file a petition for relocation. Along with that petition, you should file a motion for temporary relocation, requesting a hearing within 30 days. Typically, relocations are because someone got a job offer outside the area. And if that's the case, you have to attach your job offer, and we will help you do that. Another reason is they need family support as the family dynamic changes. Relocations are extraordinarily difficult to win. At Tampa Divorce, we're experienced with helping families relocate and helping parents with long-distance parenting plans get as much time with their children as humanly possible. TampaDivorce.com, TampaDivorce.com, TampaDivorce.com.